First and most important thing is, can you hear me? No? Yes? Good. Stunned silence there, I wondered. I have to have this because my eyesight's not good enough, I think, to see it at the back. Can I just add my thanks, first of all, to Dorothy for organising tonight. For all of you who have come along, you've shown a great commitment to come tonight because the draw of the big blue sea somewhere on the coast is very, very big at this time. So thank you so much. I can't really not mention a few friends of mine, a young doctor, young lawyer, and they've come from the wilds of Fermanagh and Tyrone tonight. So Laura and Sarah and everybody else who I have been out to Kenya with, you are so welcome and thank you for coming. I really appreciate that. So yes, Mission Africa, if you're kind of around my generation, you may well have known it as the Kwaibo Mission. It was founded 130 years ago. It's a 130-year-old. I'm not quite that age yet, but by a Belfast man who obeyed God's call. It's an amazing story. His name was Samuel Bill. He was a Northern Ireland Presbyterian, but we'll not hold that against him. And he felt, or he through a long story, he felt called to what was then the Niger Protectorate. He set off on a boat, all on his own, no finances, no missionary organization, and he landed down in the south near a river called the Kwaibo River. And he began to evangelize the people there, and God blessed him, and people burnt their idols and came to the Lord. And now there are tens upon tens of hundreds of thousands of Christians in the church that he founded. It's an amazing story. So that work still goes on, still mostly in Nigeria, but it has expanded to 2 French-speaking countries, Burkina Faso, where we have missionaries, and Chad, where at the moment we don't, but we have 2 young people training in France to learn French. And then when they get to Chad, as well as French, they're going to have to learn Arabic. So that's a big commitment for a newly married couple. So do pray for them. And then in Kenya, again, we have no full-time missionaries. But the 4 young ladies, if you just stand up so everybody can see you. Oh, they're very reluctant. They're so shy. They have, Sarah, many times, you're more likely to speak than any of the rest. Many times have you been to Kenya? 5 times. Lauren? 5. Okay. That shows their commitment to give up summer holidays while they were students, and now giving up time when they're lawyers, teachers, podiatrists, and doctors. So my team going out will have none of those skills whatsoever. But Mission Africa, its main aim is evangelism, teaching particularly pastors, because in Nigeria there's a lot of health and wealth gospel, which leads many, many Christians into a very, very bad place. There's medical work, and what we'll be talking about tonight is compassionate work. So we're focusing on Mission Africa, Kenya. The pictures you see are just some of the pictures of the teams that have gone out, because they go to children's homes, they go to schools, they go to orphanages, they even go to high security prisons to bring the love of Jesus Christ to boys and girls and prisoners and children who live on Africa's biggest landfill site, Dandora, with a football outreach there. So we send out sports teams as well. Kenya is an absolutely beautiful country. Down in the south, it's got beautiful sandy beaches. I've never seen them, but there's a picture of one. Nairobi, the capital city, is a flourishing city full of big hotels and banks and wonderful shopping centres like the one that you see there to your right. But down below is not as good a picture. It also is a home of Kibera, Africa's biggest slum. Anywhere between 750 and a million people live there in abject poverty, in crime, in violence. But there are churches there. There are actually 2 Presbyterian churches and loads of other churches, Methodist, Baptist, Catholics, Pentecostal churches to no end. But there is a great, great need there. And then in the middle, in one area of Nairobi, because Nairobi would largely be small C Christian people. There wouldn't be that many Muslims there. But in one area called Eastleigh, there are at least 500,000 Somalis living. Now that's a wonderful opportunity because no missionary can go to Somalia. It's not possible. There is a tiny church in Somalia, but there's 500,000 Somalis. And right in the middle of that, there is a Presbyterian church. And they do a fantastic work. They have a school. They have a school with the roughest young guys ever I have seen in my life, Muslim boys, but they're there because they love football. And the teachers take them for football, but they teach them about Jesus as well. And there's Muslim girls as well in the school. But so for 2018, there are 3 teams going out to Kenya. One of them had 10 doctors in training, together with Paul Bailey, the chief executive of Mission Africa, and another Presbyterian minister. They were out doing some medical work in schools and orphanages, and they've just come back. And then on the 11th of July, at the same time as our team's going out, Rebecca, who's already there, the team leader, Sarah and Lauren, who've just failed to stand up when asked, Libby, Amy, Benny, and Rebecca, one from England, one from Scotland, and the rest from Northern Ireland. And they're going to do outreach work into, as I say, schools, orphanages, and prisons. And they do a wonderful work. That's why I went first in 2016 as a board member to see was there value in their work in Kenya that these young people were doing, because they were maybe only there 3 or 4 weeks. And my goodness, I got my eyes opened, because when you have a heart for God, when you have a passion for young people coming to Christ, then God uses that. And I saw such influence that they had. And the schools that I went to, the first thing they were saying is, are the girls coming back? Even the taxi driver said, are the girls coming back this year? So that's the impact they've had. And from the Mission Council, can I just say thank you to all 4 of you. But then there's another team going, and they could no way be described as young, it has to be said. 2 of us are pensioners. One of us will have a birthday tomorrow, and she's allowed me to tell you that she's 74. So I think we have to give her a big round of applause. And something I'm going to say later on will very much be put into action by Joyce Miller and her heart for mission in her 70s. So we have Dorothy, you know. Liz sends her apologies tonight. She was running a fundraising event this morning that was very successful. Joyce will speak to you just in a wee minute, as will Jackie Cranston, who is the newest member of the team. So what we're going to do is complete a new dormitory in an old people's home. We're going to paint the inside of it, and it looks vast, I have to say. And we've only about 3 days to do it before the official opening. And then we have funding for food for a school and a school for orphaned and abandoned children. So I want to talk about the two projects for 2018. So the first one is the Old People's Home. When I went first in 2016, I saw many facilities for young people, for students, and I saw all the work. I was in Kibera and saw the privation there. But two places the Lord put in my heart, and strangely, they were only 100 yards between each other. The children in the school and the old folks in the Old People's Home. And the Lord did touch my heart for the needs there very much. And when I came home, I felt very clearly called to bring help in any way that I could. I didn't know what that help was going to be at all. And through reading Matthew 25, verses 31 to 40, where Jesus is teaching about the final judgment. It's a very challenging passage for us Christians, as Jesus tells us how at the end of time we will be judged. And I want to read it to you, because this confirmed what I was to do. But when the Son of Man comes in glory, and all the angels with him, then he will sit upon his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered in his presence, and he will separate the people as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will place the sheep on his right hand and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom I have prepared for you from the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you fed me. I was thirsty, and you gave me a drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me into your home. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you cared for me. I was in prison, and you visited me." Then those righteous ones will reply, "Lord, when did we ever see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink, or a stranger and show you hospitality, or naked and give you clothing? When did we ever see you sick or in prison and visit you?" And the king will say, "I tell you the truth. When you did it to one of the least of these my brothers and sisters, you were doing it to me." It talks about people in need, people who are hungry, people who haven't clothes, people who have no one to love them. And our call is to minister to those people in the name of Jesus. Now, there's a lot of debate among theologians on who the brothers and sisters are. That doesn't matter to me. I don't think it's about the who. I think it's about the main issue is what we are to do. And that really spoke to me. And I said, "Yes, Lord, whatever I can do for these projects, I will do." So the picture on your right is of two of the residents of the Old People's Home, both completely blind. In Kenya, if you're old and your family have died perhaps of AIDS and there's nobody to look after you, there is nowhere for you to go. People just die in their houses or along the road. But this is a very special home. There's no fees there. They take people in, and it's run by a committee from a local Presbyterian church, run by a group of ladies, a ladies' circle, who have a heart for these old people. There's 31 or 32 currently there at the moment. And so when I went back in 2017, I spoke to Jane, who's in charge of the home, about, is there anything we can do to help? And she said, well, we have room for a new dorm for 30 beds. And I thought, that would be a great project. So I talked to some people when I was there, and I discovered that that great project was going to cost £20,000, which was an awful lot. at the concert, well, I had this vision of taking a team of big, strong men to build this and save a whole lot of money. That didn't work out. That wasn't God's plan. But at the concert that Dorothy organised at Gulgorm, where we raised, I think it was in £2,000, Dorothy, which was fantastic that night. That was the first money towards the whole people's home. There was nothing. As I stand here before you, we've got £16,500. Now, great thanks to Radio Cracker, because they gave £10,000 of that. So come Christmas, listen to Radio Cracker, ring in, give them their money, because they're great supporters of Mission Africa. There is a verse there, of course, that had great resonance with me. When I'm old and my hair is grey, do not abandon me, O Lord, from Psalm 73. We'll come back to that verse. But yes, you can see the connection, can't you? So the foundations began with a team of Kenyan builders. Those foundations were dug by hand. Those big blocks that are by that size are made of solid stone, not concrete blocks like we would use here. The concrete was mixed by hand, a huge big high pile of stones and sand and cement that they mixed for days and days and days. And I was there in March when they were doing this. And so this is almost the finished building. Doesn't look all that big there, but it does hold 30 beds plus an office for the dorm supervisor. But that's inside, and we have to paint the inside of that in about 3 days. Dorothy's laughing. I think it's hysterically. But yeah, because the opening will be on the Saturday, and we'll only be there sort of 3 days before that. Whether it's finished or not won't matter. It will still be open. There won't be old people going into it. There needs to be a tiled floor put in it. Hopefully that will be there before we arrive on the 11th of July. It has to be lined because Kenyan people, when it gets down to 15, 16, 17 degrees, particularly if they're old, think they're going to die of the cold. And so they have woolly hats and gloves and shawls on. So it has to be lined because it's only really very good quality corrugated iron. It's pre-painted on the outside, so we're painting it in the inside. Now, that's going to cost £20,000. So we're trusting in the Lord for another £4,500. And that will come in, I know that. But this is an ongoing project. The lady with the dangerous-looking knife is the cook. Behind her is the stove. It's just sticks with a metal bowl over it, and that's where she cooks for 30 or now going to be 62 old people. The washing, and remember these are old people, so they have continence issues, and that's done with 2 or 3 ladies by hand. We are hoping there's an offer from a lady from Porch Church, Baptist Church, to fund a washing machine. Now, obviously, it needs a building to put it in. It needs electricity supply, but that might be a project for ongoing next year. So the Thagota School for Orphaned and Abandoned Children, or as everybody who has ever gone to it calls it, the wee school. The wee school. Well, I don't know how you would quite explain the wee school, because you don't go through those gates, so you just are in awe of this place and awe of the kids. I always get emotional when I think of this wee school. They have got kids, none of them have got parents. They're either orphans or they have been abandoned. They are the most beautiful, well-behaved kids imaginable. There's 151 of them. They're not all from Kenya. There's some from other African countries as well. Again, many schools in Kenya, most of them are fee-paying. This school is run by another committee from the same church, and those children can't pay fees, so their education comes free. It's got a really Christian ethos. There's Sarah, who I referred to. This is in 2016, when I was first challenged about what we could do for this school, because the children have to get fed. Most of them, the only decent meal they get is their lunch meal at school. And that's a lot of money for Kenyan people in a church who don't have a lot of money. You think of a big church, bigger than this, but about 4 people have motor cars to come and drive to it. The rest walk or cycle or motorbike. We gave money. They had a plot of land for a house. So in 2017, I brought over 600,000 Kenyan shillings, which was about between £5,000 and £6,000. And they were able to put a roof on this house, put the ceiling on the house, put floors into it. Hopefully when I go back, they'll be ready to let this house. And the income from that goes to feed the children and keep the school going. So that was a great investment of some of that money. The rest went to feeding the children and buying them materials. When the girls went over, they were mesmerized because they took over exercise books and they gave them to the children. And the children couldn't understand the concept of being allowed to take an exercise book home. They thought they would have to leave that in the school. So these pictures, just to let you see these wonderful kids. Now, I'm going to introduce Jackie and ask Jackie just to come up here, because as well as providing foods, we are doing something for the first time, and that is uniforms. So don't be shy, Jackie. If you stand at that mic there. So you came to the concert. Sorry, first of all, you keep telling me your name.
I'm Jackie.
You better stand a bit closer.
And I don't like mics. So yeah, I'm Jackie Cranston.
And you live where?
I live in Bali and I go to Highkirk Church.
Okay. When you attended the concert in Gilgorm, did you know anything about Mission Africa?
I knew a little bit because I'd in a previous church I knew some girls who had been out, so I kind of kept an eye on that. So
Rebecca,
I knew a little bit about it, yeah.
Yeah. So you felt the Lord saying something to you that night?
Well, after the concert, I thought I've often heard of people going out in teams and doing what those girls have done, and I thought I could never do that. But Trevor talked about a kind of working team, a practical team, just doing stuff, and I thought, I can do stuff. But in my head, I kind of thought, no, I can't really do that. I have 3 kids, don't know if I could afford it, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. But I went home and I was challenged about the fact that these wee kids had no uniforms, and my 3rd child's in primary school, and I thought, I have in my cupboard about 15 pieces of uniform that I never dumped because I thought the wee one could always use them. So then I thought, well, what if, so he goes to Campbell Primary School, which is a big school, and there's about 400 kids. And I thought, what if everybody had a couple of pieces? So I thought about that, and then I asked Trevor, would they want that? Would that be any use? And he said, yeah, that sounds a good idea. So I went to the headmaster, and she was lovely, and she just totally bought into it and said, that's a great idea. My kids' uniforms get dumped at the end of the year. So just on Friday, what day are we on now? Friday past there, I had to go up to collect uniforms, and I didn't know if I was going to get 20 uniforms or 100 uniforms. Well, there must have been 600 uniforms. Now, some of them weren't in great shape, so I sieved out 6 bags of stuff that could go to the dump, but there's hundreds of uniforms, so like all those kids will get a t-shirt and a polo shirt, and so, yeah.
And you really wanted to go in the team, didn't you?
I did,
and that wasn't going to happen. What happened a week ago?
Well, just something happened last Saturday that made it all kind of doable financially, so then I had to think, can I do this? Should I do this? And so I spoke to my husband and the children and said, what do you think? And they all said, go for it, Mum. So then on the Sunday, I thought I need to ask Trevor, is it doable? So I went and spoke to him on Sunday, and the Monday the tickets were booked, and that's it.
Many injections this week, yes.
So this week's been injections and travelling around trying to get everything I need, but it's all worked and it's all fallen into place. So
Because Jackie's so much younger than the rest, she has to work double the amount of painting.
I didn't hear that bit.
Thanks very much, Jackie. You can give her a round of applause. And that's Jackie's front room with just some of the clothes that she has sorted. So far we've vacuum packed about 8 bags. British Airways is good because they give missionaries 3 big bags as well as your whole bag. So we hope to be able to take all of those, but there's a lot of vacuum packing going on, and I hope we get them all in because it would be a shame to leave them. I saw them today for the first time, and they are absolutely immaculate. They've every one been laundered, beautifully folded, and some of them looked as if they had never been worn. Then there's another school where my boys went to many years ago, Carnini. The headmaster of Carnini is a friend of mine. I said to him, would they be able to do something? So if you notice that Camp Hill are all tops, pullovers, polo shirts, t-shirts. Carnini are all skirts and trousers, boys' trousers and girls' trousers. So that's a bag of them, vacuum packed. Whether we'll be able to take all of these or not, we'll be able to take most of it. When I was there in March, I asked the headmaster, would it matter if there was a name of a Northern Ireland school? And he said, absolutely not, because all these children have is what they come to school in. They don't have any other clothes. They can't go home and change. So this will mean that they actually are able to change their clothes when they go back home, because they will be very proud of them and they will look after them, and they'll not want to run about at home with their school uniforms on. That's something, again, we would hope would be an ongoing ministry with the school. And then the team that's going out, those girls, they will be going to many places, but I guarantee you the first place they'll go to is the wee school, and they'll be back there a few times because they're welcome there. The headmaster is retired. He doesn't get any salary. The teachers, I don't know how they live because they don't get a salary either. Imagine a school in Northern Ireland where all the teachers and the head are unpaid. That's unheard of. It would not happen. So just some prayer points. For safety in our travels, on the way to Kenya, 2 flights from Dublin to Heathrow to Nairobi, 8 hours. But especially because I know Kenya and Kenya roads, safety on our travel on the roads. For health, that's very important. We aren't in our first flush of youth. The last 2 times I've been to Kenya, I ended up once in hospital in Kenya, and the last time for a week in London, and I wasn't very well, or in England, and I was not well at all. So I would love to come back home and not have to go back to hospital again. So I value your prayers for that, as would all of the team. We would just love that the Old People's Home would be open in time for the opening, which will be on Saturday, I think it's the 13th of July. No better day to be opening an Old People's Home. Just pray for the old people themselves, the ones that are there. Many of them have dementia, some are blind, some of them can speak, but they only speak a language called Kikuyu, and so that's a local language. But there is one wonderful old man who's a retired Anglican pastor, and he will help us to talk to the old people, and I believe we'll be able to bring something of the love of Jesus to them. Pray for Jane, who runs it, for the staff, the canteen staff, the cleaning staff, the laundry staff. Pray for the children as they receive their uniforms, and pray for the Bible clubs over the summer that children will trust in Jesus. And pray for Evans and that head teacher, the teachers, and the cooks. Now, Joyce, I want you to come up a wee minute, because I want to give a wee challenge. We'll not just go quite there yet. So, Joyce, you just introduce yourself.
I'm Joyce Miller. I come from Port Stewart. What else do you want to know?
Your sister's here tonight, and she's well known around these parts.
Yeah, Liz' second home is in Ballymena, so yeah, she'd really count it probably her home.
And what was her name?
Liz Blair. She worked
Liz
with
Blair.
CEF in this area for a long time.
So
yeah.
Liz, you're very welcome, and thanks for bringing your wounded sister with you. So will this plaster be off?
Yes, hopefully it's to be off next Thursday, and I can't wait. It's 4 more days. I'm now counting down the days. It was counting the weeks before, now it's counting the days. So, yeah.
Okay.
So just
Joyce,
pray that it'll be healed well enough that I won't have to get anything else on. I've got a splint I can put on, but I don't want another plaster.
We'll add that to the prayer points.
Yeah, please do.
So I got a text a lot of weeks ago to say, Trevor, you never believe this. I was out walking the dog. I tripped and fell, and I've broken my shoulder bone, or cracked my shoulder bone, and broken my arm, wrist.
Yeah.
Wrist.
Yeah.
Your wrist. But I'm still going to Kenya. So 74 tomorrow, 2 broken bones, and still a passion to go. Have you been to Africa before?
I love Africa.
Okay.
It's my heart. I've got an Africa here. I wear it all the time. It's close to my heart.
So where have you been in Africa?
Oh, don't start. Where do I start? In the 60s, I spent 1.5 years in Uganda as a VSO. I visited some friends who were missionaries in Kenya, and then my sister's been in South Africa she was there for 12 years, so we visited her quite a few times as well. And Liz and I have been back. We were back in 2015 and last year as well. So yeah,
Okay.
I've been to Africa a few times. So it is in my heart. And I was involved with AIM. It's a different mission, but it was mainly working in Kenya and Uganda. So it's funny how, I know a lot of the places in Kenya, and we'd be very interested in the work there as well. So yeah.
And you've already run a couple of very successful fundraising events.
Yeah, we had a coffee morning a few weeks ago, and we raised £1,500, and we had a cake sale this morning, which raised £700. So that's a little towards the.
And what's
the
your
overall
church?
stuff. Sorry?
What's your church?
My church is Port Stewart Baptist.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Thanks
been there
very
for a
much
long
indeed
time.
for coming up.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So, just a little challenge in finishing. As I said, Psalm 17 and 18a, even when I am old and grey, do not forsake me, my God. So what was the purpose of that request? 18b, there's a bit more to this verse. Even when I am old and grey, do not forsake me, my God. Why? Till I declare your power to the next generation, your mighty acts to all who are to come. We join an army when we come to faith in Jesus Christ. It's like no other army in the world. There's a bad bit of the army. The army has a habit of killing or disposing of its own wounded soldiers. That's a sad, sad thing about the Christian church. But the good thing is you don't get parole in that army. You don't get out of that army. There's no early retirement. There's no voluntary redundancy. One of my favorite Old Testament characters is Caleb. Caleb went into the land. All the other spies saw obstacles, and he saw opportunity. But they didn't go with him, and for 40 years they wandered in the wilderness. He put up with their gurning and whinging and complaining for 40 years. He attended probably 100,000 funerals because everybody his age, apart from one man, died during those 40 years. And then he was there at the Battle of Jericho. He was right at the front along with Joshua. But when the walls fell, he was 80 years of age. And did he stop? Because the children of Israel crossed over and went into the promised land. But that wasn't the end of it. They had to fight every corner of that land. They had to defeat all the tribes that were there. And Caleb, the last thing we read of him, at 80 years of age, he goes to Joshua and he says, I want that mountain. That's the mountain where the fiercest people are. I don't want some young guy running this army. I'm going to lead it. Give me this mountain. So just a challenge tonight. There's a lot of you are like me. You've got grey hair. I first went to Kenya when I was 63. I didn't rush into it. Absolutely not. But it doesn't matter. Sometimes we think going out on teams is for young people. It absolutely isn't. Joyce's story tells you that. That heart. We had a Mission Africa missionary, a doctor. She was still going to Nigeria when she was 85 years of age. She was a fierce woman. You didn't cross her, but she had that passion and heart. And there's something about Kenya and Africa. And Dorothy, you'll find this out. Jackie, you'll find this out. Liz, if you were here, you'll find it out. That you will meet the most beautiful, lovely, warm-hearted people. And you'll get bit, hopefully not by a mosquito, but by the love of Africa. So thanks for listening so patiently. I've probably gone way over my time as usual, but really appreciate you coming.